In this episode of the IT Experts podcast, we're going to help you work out why you need to prepare your people for M&A. Welcome to the IT Experts podcast, the only podcast to help MSPs scale to 1 million, and if already there, get to 5 and go faster. At the end of the day, isn't it all about building a business that works for you rather than you for it? I hope you enjoy the show. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the IT Experts podcast. We are back in the podcast lounge again with Alison Whitfield. Hello, Alison. How are you doing today?
Hi, Ian. I'm very well, thank you. Thanks very much for having me.
No problem at all. So we spoke last time all around some things around leadership and kind of the people element of growing and scaling your MSP. And from that conversation, we started talking about culture and more importantly, culture with M&A. Now, we all know that M&A is one of the most powerful ways to grow and scale your business. But what we got into conversation with afterwards, didn't we, was about where some MSPs don't recognize, I think that's the right term, the importance of having the right culture, the right people in your own organization before you even start to do M&A, because it's not just about plugging another business into yours. It's about integrating, working with, collaborating, being colleagues, being great friends and everything like that. So we're going to dive into that today and what you need to do to help prepare your people, prepare your business and prepare your culture ready for mergers and acquisitions, whichever way around they look like. So before we get cracking, Alison, just explain and share with everybody, who are you, what do you do and who do you help?
Yeah, thank you. So I am Alison Whitfield. I'm a people and culture consultant and I help usually small startups and scale up businesses who are looking at their people strategy as a way to improve their organizational success. So I do that through my business, Cultivate People Services. And I work with those companies really to try and align to business objectives and commercial plans to actually work out who in the business will help them achieve those goals over the years that they're putting that plan in place. I've worked on quite a few mergers and acquisitions. I've worked on quite a lot of restructure work. So they're usually the kind of businesses that I get involved in.
Fantastic. We know many MSPs typically are under kind of 30, 40 people, under the 5 million. They're a relatively small number of people because of we know the amount of automation and that sort of stuff that's going on. We talk about the right structure so it's scalable and you can grow with it and you've got that leverage with that time. What is strategic HR and why do MSPs need it?
Yeah, so I think I always explain strategic HR. If you think about what strategic HR is not, the opposite of strategic HR is what I would say is tactical HR, reactive HR. So if you are a business of less than 40 people, let's say, what's likely to be happening is you will either have an external partner who's helping you with HR compliance and contracts and things like that, or you'll have one person in the business that's trying to juggle it all, someone probably like a CFO, a CEO, or even an office manager, something along those lines. And when we take the shift to strategic HR, we're coming away from that pure compliance of ticking the boxes. This is what we need to do for right to work and contracts and things like that, to thinking about how people are actually an asset in the business and how we can use those people to help us gain traction in the market, to reach our commercial goals, and how they all actually link together in the multiple departments, multiple sites. And I think strategic HR comes into play, particularly when you are looking at that growth phase. So when you start thinking about, okay, now we're at 30 people, but we're going to get to 40, 50, 60 over the next few years, that's when strategic HR becomes really important.
And you've just said that, and many MSP owners will go, "Oh my God, from 40 to 50 to 60, you're joking." Yeah, but if you start dropping in M&A, this is how quickly it can grow. Once you've got yourself to 1 million, maybe 2 million, nice and good level of EBITDA and a good level of operational maturity and efficiency, you can literally just start bolting on MSPs and doubling, tripling, quadrupling the size of the business very quickly. And if you haven't got that understanding of why your people structure is so important, the train's going to come off the rails, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2021, I managed two pretty major acquisitions, which added, I think, in total about 120 people to the business. And the business went from around 8 million revenue to 24 million revenue, I
Yeah.
believe. So it was a huge change. And suddenly, the majority of your business are people from a completely different world that you
Yeah.
don't know and
Yeah.
have been
Yeah.
doing their job for years, and you build them into your business, and you're suddenly sat there going, why are you not working the way that we're working? Why do you not do the things that we want to do? But you forget that those people have done their jobs for many years and have worked in a certain way and in a certain culture that now has shifted. So being prepared for that shift is massively important.
And so if you were looking to buy another MSP, would you be adamant that the company you're going to buy has the same culture, or is it okay to have a different culture and then develop that culture, or kind of, I'm not going to use the word manipulate, but I just did, adjust that culture into your way of working? How does that kind of thought process normally work for, I'm guessing that most MSP owners don't even think about this
No.
when it goes on. But if you've got, if you've got the yin and the yang, if you've got Oxford and Cambridge in two businesses and then you bring them together, I'm guessing that there could be some problems straight off the bat that you never even thought of. So,
Yeah.
how should they approach that?
Yeah, I wouldn't worry that it's necessarily up there with the top reasons. I think
Right.
ultimately you're going to look at businesses to acquire because they increase your market share, or they give you additional skills or knowledge in the business, or it's a good deal. Sometimes that just comes down to it, that
Yeah.
you're going to get a lot for your money, and they'll always be the big drivers. And I don't necessarily think culture is a deal breaker unless it is completely different. And what I mean by that is, if you are looking at a business where, let's say, your business is very structured, very good on organizational design, everybody knows what they're doing, and you are looking at a business where it's much more flexible and people move around, or where they work is very different, things like that. The pay structures might be a big indicator that the business is very different, the transparency. There's certain elements of culture that I think can potentially be a deal breaker, but most of them, I think actually it's more of a case of, let's understand it as early as possible, and then we can plan to integrate it better and plan to what the risks might be and what we need to understand when it comes to that integration phase.
Okay, I think you've answered the question better than I asked it. So thank you.
That's good.
Thank you for that. Let's talk about the implementation phase. When we've decided to purchase another business, you've got this understanding that this is all around the kind of the people. What are the key steps around that implementation phase? Because when you decide to go and buy another MSP, it's a completely different project. You're going to be taken out of BAU. It's going to consume your life. It's going to probably be very stressful. It'll be worth it in the end, but it's a completely different hours in the day you need to find to do this, and approach in a different mindset. So you almost need to be detached, don't you? But what different phases are there of the implementation stage, and what are the things we need to keep an eye out for?
So I think a big thing to consider is that the M&A process generally takes a really long time. So even if you're having those early due diligence conversations, the deal might not then be done for another 6, 9, 12 months, as
Yeah.
in when the actual contracts are signed. So a lot of the time, in my experience, and speaking to other HR professionals that have gone through this, what tends to happen is, as we're getting really close to the deal being signed, and we think this is definitely going to happen, we pull somebody in and go, start planning the integration.
Yeah.
But we then have to do a bit of backpedaling to go, okay, what's the business like and who are the people and all of these things. So there's a balance to be had, I think. You don't want to start it too early, because we know that an awful lot of M&A conversations fall through before they
Yeah.
actually even get around the boardroom table. But once you have some pretty good confidence that this is going to happen, I would look at, as an MSP owner, look at who is going to be your key person to facilitate that integration.
Yeah.
Is that going to be a chief operating officer, an FD, a CTO, an HR professional, whoever it might be in your business that you know knows your business really well and has that skill to facilitate all those people? Bring them into that process as soon as you can. Now, obviously, that might be that you need to work under non-disclosure agreements, you might need to sign confidentiality agreements, all those kind of things. But if you bring that person in as early as possible, they can start putting the little flags on the plate to say, we need to just think about that. We need to work out who that leadership team is and
Yeah.
how they're going to work with this leadership team. Where are the duplications in work? So where have we got two people doing the same job? And what does that mean for the business moving forward? We can then start thinking about some of the actions that will be taken, even though we know we won't actually start actioning those things until the deal's done. We can start building a plan for them and start also building the communication plan, because what's really critical is having that idea of what's going to happen after the deal's done and you start integrating the businesses is really great. But how you actually tell people and when you tell people and who you tell first is really important. So if you think that I've come from the PLC world, so you cannot talk about deals until they are literally done, and you will be telling people the morning that it goes to the market, that the announcement goes to the city. In other cases, you might start being able to bring certain people on the management team in, again, look at confidentiality agreements if needs be, but start letting people know what you're doing, why you're doing it, why this business, and just start building that conversation up as soon as you possibly can,
Yeah.
really. Because once you hit that mark that the businesses are going to join, you've usually only got a couple of weeks between exchanging and completing. And actually, that time goes really fast because
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
then bombarded with queries and you've got to really act fast then. And as you mentioned before you know it, you're totally off BAU. Everything is focused on the integration project, and preparing for that really well is really important.
So preparing for that, yes, the owner's going to be doing just that and you turn it into a project and et cetera, et cetera. But if you've got an emerging or a solid leadership team, but they're not directors of the business and they're not directors and kind of like shareholders, do you keep it quiet from them? Do you let them know what's going on? You just mentioned then about confidentiality agreements or things like that, because this is, as soon as the button gets pressed, this is going to fall to them to implement, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what's the best way to approach that?
Yeah, I think again, it all depends on your business and it depends on, have you got market sensitivities? Is the commercial things that you need to think about there? Who's your most trusted people in that team?
Yeah.
Who has maybe done it before elsewhere, even if they've not done it in your business? And what will you actually need them to do? Because some members of the leadership team might not be involved that much. They might just carry on, whereas people like your sales directors, your commercial directors, the people who are in operations, they're going to be pretty integral to that implementation piece and that integration of the businesses. So if you can speak to them and tell them why you're looking to purchase this business, what the objective is to do that, is it market share, is it additional skills, things like that. Sometimes it can actually help a lot of the time, because I've been in a situation where a business has been gone really lean, knowing that they're going to do an acquisition, and things start feeling a little bit tight and everyone's a bit
Yeah.
stressed, and you go into your leadership team going, help, we need some more people, or why are you not helping with this? If you bring those people in, you can say to them, look, just take a breather. This is going to happen. We know it's going to happen. It's going to be around this time, but it's not 100% sure. So we
Mm.
need to start planning for these things. But obviously, we need to do that confidentially. Can't say that word,
Mhm.
with your team in mind, because we don't want to upset people. We don't want to then start that panic of, oh my gosh, we're buying a business, and it get out there. And I think we also have to remember sometimes, when we're the business that's purchasing a business, the people that you're bringing in probably have no idea that they're about to be acquired, and that can be quite a scary time as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
on the other side of it, people who are being acquired are probably very nervous that their jobs are now at risk. Are they going to be having to interview for jobs again? Are they going to have to build relationships with leaders that they don't know? So the people on the two sides of the acquisition need a lot of thinking about. And I think that's where the facilitator person comes in. I am a big advocate for that being a HR professional,
Yeah.
because I know that HR professionals, especially in small businesses, know all the people, they know the structures, they know the business. And actually, by the time you get to implementation phase, your CEO and your CFO and your MD, whoever it is that's been having this conversation around M&A, is absolutely exhausted with it.
Yeah.
They're bored
Yeah.
of talking about it because they've
Yeah.
been in all the detail for maybe 6, 9
Yeah.
months. So they don't really want to be the people that are sat there then going, bring all the business together, let's do all the detail work, because they've done it all. So if you are that person and you think, oh, I need to be carrying on with the strategic stuff, but I need this implementation to work well, identifying that person quite early on in the process who's going to help you with it and you can hand over to is really important.
So are you talking about an implementer within the business, or are you talking about a consultant who helps you go through the M&A journey?
I think you can probably do a little bit of both. And again, it
Right.
depends on the business and what skill set you've got in the business. So when I was head of people in an MSP, we went from 45 to about 140 people. I'd worked in operations in that business for 4 years already. So I knew the people, I knew the structures, the processes, and I could work with the rest of the management team to help facilitate some of those people integrations, technology
Yeah.
integration, system integrations. I knew the business really well. Some smaller MSPs might not have enough people to do that. They might not have the skill set to do that, and they might have a management team that's really great in their business, but actually they've had no exposure to mergers and
Right. Okay.
acquisitions. So that's where I think an external facilitator can help, because someone who's done it before and seen the good, the bad, and the ugly is really beneficial to those smaller teams, because it can be massive. I've worked with a business that's gone from about 5 to about 20 in one acquisition. So again, the majority of the
Yeah.
people in that business now are new people. They're not the originals. So that can be quite a scary time for everyone involved. And if you've only got a very lean team to begin with, it's very daunting to try and take on that big project.
What do you suggest? I've been part of acquisitions in the past in like corporate life and stuff, and I can't really remember how I felt. I was always one of these people who always used to embrace the opportunity and go, who's the new boss who's going to pay my bonus, and like work on those sorts of things. But if we look at the typical MSP staff member, they're probably not going to be very happy about it. They're probably going to be very, as you say, scared. High S and C disc people generally don't like change, all of that kind of things. What are some of the things that you can do straight away as a new MSP
Mhm.
owner for these people that you can do to settle their mind? I know you can sit down and talk to them, but what's the kind of what have you seen that's worked well, and then what have you seen that's not worked well?
So one thing that I always do is in that preparation before announcement is I will prepare an FAQ document. So I'll put together a list of the questions that are most likely to come up.
Yeah,
Why are we doing this? Who's the business that we've bought? What does it mean? Is my role going to change? And that's on obviously both sides. So the people who are coming into the business, they will have questions about, do my benefits continue over? Is my contract changing? Is my manager changing? Is my place of work changing? All of those things that, as soon as, if you are just the average person in an MSP that is working on projects or service desk or wherever it might be, that you're not involved in the leadership team, you don't see these things coming, they're all the questions that are going to come up. You're going to have that sort of nervous feeling. So I always prepare that FAQ document with the leadership team and with the acquisition teams. Sometimes that's also working with the business that you're acquiring, or
yeah,
working with both leadership teams to answer some of those questions.
yeah,
But if you can have that document ready to go on announcement day, that means that in the old days, we might have just walked into an office and told everybody at 9 o'clock, but
yeah,
now we'll probably be doing this stuff over Teams. We'll probably be dropping a meeting invite into someone's diary really early on in the day that people aren't expecting.
yeah, yeah,
So then we get everybody on a call, we talk through what's happening, and then we issue them that FAQ as soon as that meeting is live, so that people have got those answers. And it just prevents you from being bombarded with
yeah,
all the same kind of questions,
yeah,
because a lot of the time people are protected, and that's something that we need to remember, in that we have 2P regulations, we
yeah,
have employment law that protect people's roles, and we can't just, in the UK anyway, we can't
yeah,
just merge businesses and cut jobs and things like that. There will be an element of settling in that FAQ document, and then also providing people a point of contact. So that facilitator role again is really good in that if you have any queries about things that happen over the next few weeks, this is the person running the integration project. And I usually create some kind of like Microsoft Forms element, or like a survey that people can just fire questions to, because
Yeah.
obviously not everyone is confident enough to speak up on a major Teams call with the whole business there and ask questions. You might think of things hours later. So just immediately setting up those communication channels can be really settling in those first few hours of the announcement.
And just making sure that, I guess, on the buyer side as well, that team could be unsettled thinking, oh, I bet there's going to be some people in there. Would you do the same again with an FAQ for the current team?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would probably try and keep everyone together as much as possible, because you're starting as you mean to go on
Yeah.
almost. You're addressing everybody's potential concerns and working with those people. You might need to address certain groups slightly differently, dependent on the complexities of the project. There might be multiple sites involved in an M&A. There might be certain groups or departments that are going to be affected slightly differently. So in that case, I would set up probably a secondary call to just those people and go
Yeah.
through some specifics. Sometimes it might be that once you've done this acquisition, there will be a restructure project, there will be too many people in roles, there will be some kind of closure or redundancy or something like that, and you might need to tackle that immediately. Hopefully you will have put that all in your integration plan before the deal's even been done,
Yeah.
so you can get in those conversations on that first day. Again, dependent on the type of business, sometimes these things get around, rumors
Yeah.
start to fly, people start hearing things. If it's not something that's been done in strictest confidence, then people might already have a bit of an idea of what's happened or what's going to happen. And then, what humans are all
Yeah.
gossips. We like
Yeah.
it. We like a good assumption.
Yes.
We like to get on the phone to our friends when these things are happening, going, what
Did
do you
you
think is
hear
going to
this?
happen? And who's this? And who's going to be our boss?
Yeah.
As soon as you can quell some of that noise by giving people as much information as possible and helping them understand who to speak to, it will just take so much of the noise away for people themselves as well, but also for your leadership team that now have this massive project.
And then I guess it's around communicating, isn't it? Just helping them understand, what does a project look like? This is what we're going to be doing over the next 1, 3, 6 months. This
Yeah.
is what it's going to mean to you in your role, etc., etc. And then just keep giving them updates as you're going on. If there's any MSPs out here sitting there now going, oh my God, I can't be bothered to do one-to-ones and weekly meetings generally anyway, wait till you do an M&A, then you
Yeah.
need to properly communicate.
Yeah.
So that's all good stuff. What have you seen that's gone horribly wrong in your experience on when someone's been integrating with their people?
Not too much, really, to be fair. I think I've seen things that I think, oh, that could have definitely gone wrong. I think absolutely everything comes back to communication and empathy as well. So
Yeah,
understanding that, yes, you are a CEO, an MD, a person in leadership that is probably sick to the back teeth of this conversation around this
yeah,
merger, but your people who are running your business are just hearing of it. So it's just having that empathy, I think, of
yeah,
understanding that other people are going to take a little bit of time to come around to the fact that their team's just doubled. You might be now telling a manager that they've got 15 people to manage instead of 5, or whatever that might be. There's so many things that can be affected. It's going to be loads and loads of questions. And I think having that communication plan of, this is what you can expect to happen this week, this will happen this month, this will probably be more of a 3 to 6 month plan.
yeah,
And that might change, but giving people those guidelines can be really helpful, because actually, a lot of the time, what happens in these situations is you build up and you build up and you build up and you're waiting to go, and you're like, has the contract been signed? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like a big bang. You tell everyone the first 24 hours is absolute chaos, and the
yeah,
next sort of 72 hours is like a bit of a lull,
yeah,
because everyone just has to get on with their normal
yeah,
jobs, and you're not quite straight into a big integration thing, so it drops a little bit.
yeah.
And if you do some of the communication well at the beginning, I would say so. I think getting that right is important, but definitely having an idea of, these are the things that we're really going to have to consider in the implementation plan. So even if if the time that you sign that piece of paper, it's just a list, and now you have to put that facilitator in place to run a project, to say, put all of the technology things over here, the systems things here, the people things here, the financial things here. There's things that you will need lots of different people from the business to manage: name changes, domain changes, people's email access. There's so many details. And I think once you start putting those in like kind of buckets, you can start saying that's not going to be, we're not going to worry
breaking
about
it
that
down.
straight away. We're going to still trade as this so they can keep those emails, all of those things. I think if you start having that plan, start putting meetings in the diary, have someone that's going to do a weekly integration project update to the whole
Yeah,
business. This is what we've done this week. This is what's coming next. And I think the risk, if you don't do that, that's really important to remember, is that the integration of those businesses should be a project.
yeah,
It might be a
yeah.
6-month project, it might be a 12-month project, but it should be a project. It shouldn't become the BAU. You otherwise will just end up running multiple different businesses under one
Great.
umbrella. And you'll end up in your leadership meetings and in your management meetings saying, we can't do that with that set of customers because they're not on that system, or we can't do that with that system because it doesn't work with that and we've not integrated those. And you actually you don't merge an acquisition, you just have two
Yeah,
businesses
you
running
just run two
concurrently,
businesses.
or sometimes more than two businesses. I've been in a situation where
Yeah,
we've done multiple acquisitions at once. Having that integration plan and some clear deadlines and ownership and accountability for those things being done is really important.
fantastic. Alison, absolutely brilliant show. Again, thanks very much. Loads of golden nuggets in there for MSPs if they're looking at doing some M&A and haven't really considered this whole people thing before, which is really important, the team element. What's the top 3 things that they need to be taking away from today's show?
So I think if you are thinking about growing by M&A, or you're already in the process, I think don't underestimate how long that process can take. It can be months on end and it can be really draining for your leadership team. Think about that. Also think about that once the deal is done, as in signed, you've still got a lot of work to do. So that integration phase is huge. And as I say, your leadership team might well be quite drained by it. So having a key facilitator in the business, whether it's a internal HR professional or someone who understands the business, or an external, can come in and help you tackle that project. It's a really big piece of work. And also, I think what I would say is, as early in the process that you can get someone with a people mindset looking at the deal, that would be great. Even if it is that due diligence phase, it might not make or break the deal, some of the people things that you uncover, but knowing about them can make that integration phase feel a lot lighter and be able to help you plan for the communications.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you once again, Alison. Just in case people want to continue the conversation with you, how do they get in contact with you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Alison Whitfield. You can also find me through cultivateps.co.uk, which is my consultancy, Cultivate People Services. And LinkedIn is probably the best way. I'm on there most days, so you can find me on there.
Great stuff. And don't forget to mention the podcast. We know where the inquiry came from. Look, thanks again. Catch up
Thanks,
with you,
Ian.
I'm sure, very shortly. And see you all on the next one. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Just before you go, and if you're curious about how this episode links with the ability to scale your MSP to $1 million, or if you're already there, accelerate to 5, then we want to invite you to come and take the MSP Mastery Quiz. And in just 3 minutes, you're going to get a 360-degree scan of your business where you can identify the 1 or 2 tactics that can help you find more time, engage and align your people, and help generate more leads in your MSP. It's really simple. Just click on the link in the show notes. And if you have enjoyed this episode, we'd love to get some feedback from you by means of a rating, review on Spotify or iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. We really appreciate every single one of them. Now you can go and enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to catching up and connecting with you soon. All the best now.